Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Diptarup Ghosh Dastidar and I'm an assistant professor in the Amity School of Languages, Amity University, Chhattisgarh. And today is going to be the final session that we are having on The Last Ride Together by Robert Browning. So what did we do in the earlier sessions? In the first session, we introduced the poem, The Last Ride Together, and in doing so, we talked about the verse structure of the poem and the rhyme scheme of the poem and about everything that we need to know before we begin the poem. In the second session, we began the poem stanza by stanza, talking about each stanza in detail up till stanza number 5. Now, this poem has 10 stanzas. So in the second video we did 5 stanzas, and this is the final video, and in this we are going to finish the poem, the rest 5 stanzas of this poem. So what happened in the last 5 stanzas? So we got to know about a story. What is the story? There is this lover, there is this guy who is deeply in love with a girl, and somehow the the speaker in the poem cannot be together with the lover. But as a final favor, he goes and asks, "Ma'am, would you like to have one last ride with me?" And she says, "Yes." And then they move on towards their journey and they sit together in one horse and they are riding. And the speaker somehow emphasizes that the present moment is the best moment in life, and therefore one should not think about what has happened in the past and be disappointed by it, and one must not think about the future and be frustrated by it. Instead, one should remain in the present and enjoy this present moment as much as they can. So that was the crux of the first 5 stanzas. In the last 5 stanzas, he kind of comes to terms with his own failures, and he manages to overcome the grief that he would usually have on not having his lover. Now, the thing is, firstly, in the rest of the 5 stanzas, the first 3 stanzas are all about comparisons. So the poet compares, the speaker in the poem compares himself and his love to the love of some other people. So who are these other people? See, we'll do stanza 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, stanza 6, stanza 7, stanza 8. These 3 stanzas are actually dealing with a certain set of people who are known to have defined love in their own ways, but even they cannot explain or they cannot enjoy love the way he is right now, riding with his lover, even though it is a one last ride. So in the 6th stanza, he compares himself to statesmen, we'll see all that, and soldiers. In the 7th stanza, he compares himself with poets. And in the 8th stanza, compares himself with sculptors and musicians. And in doing so, speaks about how he is better than all of them. His experience of love is better than all of them. How is it possible? Let us read the poem and try to understand. So, the 6th stanza goes something like this. What hand and brain went ever paired? What heart alike conceived and dared? What act proved all its thought had been? What will but felt the fleshly screen? Now see, these lines are actually, these 4 lines, these are 4 questions. And what kind of questions are these? The kind of question that we have here is called a rhetorical question. Now we have talked about what rhetorics is when we talked about prosody as well. Rhetorics is the art of speaking, but a rhetorical question is a sort of question whose answer is given in the question itself. So if I ask you a question, whose answer is present inside the question itself, then that would be a rhetorical question. For example, if I asked you that, would you go and jump down a cliff and maybe, jump to your death down a cliff? I would just ask this question. And this would be a rhetorical question because the answer is definitely no, you will not. So, based on context, obviously. And so, therefore, a rhetorical question is a nice way of proving a point. It is a device which is used by orators in order to prove a point that, would you do this? No, you would not. So, instead of simply saying, no, you would not do this, you would say, would you do this? Would you do this? Won't you do this? Yes, you will. The answer would be like that. So, I hope that rhetorical question is pretty much clear, and these four questions that we have over here, these are all rhetorical questions. What is the meaning of these questions? Let's understand. What hand and brain went ever paired? So has there ever been a hand which is paired with the brain? It means to say that there are always times when the brain and the body don't work together. Your brain says something else, but your hand does something else. So what hand and brain went ever paired? What heart alike conceived and dared? So has there been a heart which has conceived, means made an idea, created an idea, and then finally dared to do it? So in a way, it's talking about some situations where it is less likely to see a heart or a person planning something and then actually doing it. So there are so many people who think of things, their brain thinks, but then their hand doesn't work on it. And because their hand doesn't work on it, the work is undone. Okay? In the second line, they think about it, their mind conceives it, their heart thinks of it, but they don't dare to do it because they don't have the courage or the guts to do it. Often happens. What act proved all its thought had been? So has there ever been any act in history, questions history, has there ever been any act in history which was played out exactly as it was thought? So if a person thinks something, is it possible that that is exactly how the act proved out to be? Has this ever happened? It has never happened. That is what the speaker is contending. What will but felt the fleshly screen? So was there ever a will? A will means something that is in your mind that you want to do, and fleshly screen would be the material body, and therefore goes on to mean that, is there any will which has actually reached a material body? So have you thought about something which has actually come into reality? So all these four questions are actually one single same question, that we often think something, but that thought never gets translated into reality. That thought is never turned into reality. That thought remains a thought. It doesn't come alive. And that's what these four lines mean. We ride and I see her bosom heave. So they go on riding and he can see her bosom heaving. So with the horse, their body is also heaving. There's many a crown for who can reach. There's a lot of crowns, for anyone who wants to reach or who can reach the crown. But will they reach? That's a rhetorical question. 10 lines, a statesman's life in each. So let's say, how do you explain the 10 lines over here? The 10 lines could be the first 10 lines of every stanza, of this stanza particularly, because every stanza has 11 lines, and in the next three stanzas, the first 10 lines are about the others, that is, statesman, soldiers, poet, sculptor, musician, and the 11th line is about himself. Okay, so he's talking about himself and how he is in a better position. That could be one. Or 10 lines could also be explained as ranks in which statesmen stand. So whenever there's any regiment, the regiment always stands in a line, and in every line there is a position of a statesman in there. So a statesman can only go so far. A statesman cannot achieve to be or even think of being a king, even if the statesman has the ability to do so. The flag stuck on a heap of bones, a soldier's doing. Now, see, this is enjambment. In the next few stanzas, also, we'll see a lot of enjambment happening. So, the flag, there is a flag, so the flag of a country which is stuck on a heap of bones. So, people have died, and on top of the dead bodies, you have a flag. Who does it? A soldier has does it. Okay, fine. So, what has the statesman achieved? The statesman has probably achieved himself the feat of being very near the king, but never the king himself, right? So the soldier has put a flag on a lot of dead bodies. What did he achieve? The question rises. What atones? What is the point of it? They scratch his name on the abbey stones. The what is the end result of a soldier, doing so much so that a flag can be raised? What is the end result? His name is etched on stones which are kept in abbeys. In the sense, he dies and then he is buried, and when he is buried, there is a stone on top of his grave, which is the epitaph, and in the epitaph, something is written about him. That is the only thing that we can give a soldier. So, what is the point of being a statesman or a soldier? It's pointless. They have done so much in their life, but they have got nothing, nothing, nothing. Me, my writing is better by their leave. My writing is better because even if I have lost someone, I have actually gained, because end of the day I am writing. So that's what matters. The present matters. It doesn't matter what I have done. It doesn't matter how people will remember me. What matters is I am writing right now by their leave, because not like them, I'm writing. I'm doing good. So this was the 6th stanza. Let's move on now to the 7th stanza, where he talks about poets. Says, what does it all mean, poet? Well, your brains beat into rhythm, you tell what you felt. See, again, enjambment. You can see a lot of enjambment over here. What does it all mean, poet? So he asks the poet a question. What does it all mean? What is the meaning of it? Meaning of what? Let's see. Well, your brains beat into rhythm. So things that are in the brains of the poets, the poet beats them into a rhythm. So usually the poets, whenever they write a poem, there is a rhythm to it. There is a rhyme scheme. There is a rhythm. Without a rhythm, you cannot really frame a good poetry, especially at that time. This is Victorian age, people. This is an age where free poetry has not yet taken a good form yet. And we are still to get free poetry. Free poetry in the sense the use of free verse. So right now, the kind of poetry that you find everywhere, you don't really get a lot of rhythm. You might get rhythm, but you definitely don't get rhyme. So at that time, both rhyme and rhythm, they were very important, and having a structure, that is what separated poetry from the other forms like prose or maybe even drama. So what does it all mean, poet? Well, your brains beat into rhythm, you tell what we felt only. You tell what we felt only. You just tell that. You expressed, you hold things beautiful the best. So the poet has expressed that whatever is beautiful is the best. So anything that is beautiful is the best. And paste them in a rhyme, so side by side. And so what do? You take a lot of beautiful things according to you, whatever is beautiful, and you put them side by side, one after the another, and you put them in a rhyme. So rhythm, rhyme, that's what a poet does. This something, nay, this much, okay, that is all right, that is something, that is a good thing. Okay, no, okay, fine, that's not something, that is a lot, that is much. Happy? But then, have you yourself what's best for men? Okay, so you have understood what's best for your poem. Fine. You saw the beautiful things in life and you said that this and this is so beautiful. I'm gonna put all of that into the poetry and I'm going to make an amazing poem. And you make an amazing poem. Very good. But tell me something, you poet. Do you have something that is the best for men? Men in the sense that is best for mankind. Do you have something that's good for mankind, that's best for mankind? You have something that's good for your poem, best for your poem. But do you have something the other way around? Are you, poor sick old ere your time, nearer one with your own sublime? So you see, again here, with the dash and dash, use of parenthesis. So parenthesis, as we have talked before, can be done using in a lot of ways. You can use commas instead of the M dash. That is called an M dash. If there is a dash which is smaller than the M dash, it is called an N dash, because M is larger than N. and m dash is larger than an n dash, which is smaller. And if something is smaller than the n dash, then it is a hyphen. So these are things that you get in formatting. But anyways, usually you can use an m dash to create a parenthesis, or you could use a bracket to create a parenthesis, or you could use commas. It's like all of these have been used, and there are so many others. So these are the main parenthesis setters. So anyways, without the parenthesis, are you nearer one whit your own sublime? One whit, even one step closer. So are you even one step closer to your own sublime? So becoming sublime means becoming one with the transcendent. Becoming sublime means becoming pure in a way. So you are poor, you are sick, and you are old before your time. Your time has not come to be poor, but you are poor. Your time has not come to be sick, but you are sick. Your time has not come to be old, and yet you are old, my dear poet friend. But even after becoming poor, sick, and old before your time, are you even one step closer to being sublime? You tried all your life just to be what? To be sublime, to be remembered, for people to, read you and then feel that emotion going in them. But then we who have never turned a rhyme. So, but there have been other people who have never written a rhyme and who are yet more sublime. There are others. And well, there are others who have never written a rhyme, and it doesn't matter to them whether they are sublime or not. But poet, dear poet, are you sublime? You are not sublime. So again, a rhetorical question, that you are not close to sublime. Look at me. I am riding with my mistress, not my mistress, okay, my ex-mistress. And well, I'll lose her, I know that, but I am having my time. Riding's a joy. For me, I ride. What do you do, poet? I ride. So you see, he is literally comparing himself with these ace kinds of people who are supposed to have the best of experiences, and he says how he is having the best experience, better experience than all of them combined together. So in the sixth stanza, we had the statesman and the soldier, the statesmen and the soldiers. In the seventh stanza, as we saw, he talked about the poets. Now in the eighth stanza, he goes on to compare himself with sculptors and musicians. Let's see how that goes. The eighth stanza. And you, great sculptor, so you gave a score of years to art, her slave, and that's your Venus. Whence we turn to yonder girl that fords the burn. Okay, so turns to the sculptor and says, so you gave a score of years to art. Score of years means 20. A score means 20. Decade means 10. Century means 100. So a score means 20. You gave a score of years to art. So you became her slave in a way. So her slave is in a way trying to explain the position of the sculptor in relation to art. Because the sculptor gave all his life to art, now he was her slave for the whole time. And that's your Venus. So Venus is the goddess. Venus is a Roman goddess of love. So that's the muse for the sculptor. Whence we turn to yonder girl that fords the burn. So it talks about sculpting, maybe, in which there's a girl and fording the burn in a way. Fording the burn is a phrase which Browning himself came up with, and fording the burn would mean going across a piece of rugged land. So maybe the art which has a girl in it, which has a lady in it, is about, the sculpture is about a very dramatic piece, and therefore when we look at that yonder girl, you say that that is your creation, and we look at it and we say, is that the best that you could do? And you acquiesce. When we ask you, is that the best that you could do after 20 years of being her slave, is that your best? And you say, well, yes, it is. So acquiesce is in a way trying to accept something, but hesitantly. You're not really sure about whether you want to accept it, and yet you are accepting it. So that is acquiescing. So you acquiesce, and shall I repine? What should I fret now? Should I fret because that is not enough? Your sculpture is not enough? Your sculpture is really pointless? What, should I fret now? Yeah? And then he goes on to the man of music, says, what, man of music, you grown grey with notes and nothing else to say. So all you have left, my dear man of music, you have left your notes. That's it, your musical notes. Nothing else. You have nothing else to say. Is this your sole praise from a friend? Is that all that you could say in praise of your friend? So greatly his opera strains intense. So this is what the musician could say for a friend as a praise. What is the musician saying? He's saying, greatly his opera strains intent, put in music, we know how fashions end. Alright, so uh, opera is a kind of music, right? Opera is a kind of singing style in which you go extremely high pitch. You use your vocal cords more than your other chords, and you usually do not use your nose at all. So greatly his opera strains, the singing fashion, the opera strains intent, put in music, we know how fashions end. So the musician, even in praising, the musician is not praising enough. Even in the praises, the musician has complaints, the musician has criticism. Why so? Because the musician is never content with what has been made, and therefore the musician's life is a mess. Well, oh, you sculptor, 20 years spent doing nothing, musician always critical of things. Look at me. I am writing. I gave my youth. I've given away my youth. Now, maybe after this, I'll become an old man. Maybe after this, I will not love anyone anymore. But we ride in fine. Right now, we are good. We are riding. We are all right. So, you see, comparing himself with these people, the speaker in the poem suggests how he is in a better place than all of them combined together. Now let's move on to the 9th stanza of the poem. Who knows what's fit for us? Now here we get a kind of an acceptance, and an acceptance into the fact that we cannot have everything, and therefore it's best if we are happy with what we have. It says, who knows what's fit for us? Had fate proposed bliss, here should sublimate my being. Had I signed the bond, still one must lead some life beyond. So says, who knows what's fit for us? No one knows what is good for us, what is bad for us. Had fate proposed bliss here, if fate wanted me to be happy, proposed bliss means proposed that I would be happy. Here should sublimate my being. So bliss here should sublimate my being means if fate had proposed that happiness would sublimate my being, that happiness would be my achievement, if fate wanted that, had I signed the bond, if I had signed the bond, maybe this is the bond of marriage, or maybe this is a bond that he signs with fate, we don't know. Who knows what's fit for us? Had fate proposed bliss, here should sublimate my being. Had I signed the bond, still one must lead some life beyond. So it's not just about the bond, it's not just about this present life. We have a life beyond also. So this is a kind of a transcendental tone that is included in this poem. Talks about a life that is beyond this physical life, this physical love, this space, and says how one must have some life beyond, have a bliss to die with dim descried. So death is something that is written in everyone's life, but that doesn't mean that one cannot die in bliss, one cannot die happy. It's not that. This foot once planted on the goal, this glory garland round my soul. This foot once planted on the goal, so my foot planted on a goal, this glory garland. A garland is it's made out of flowers usually. In Hindi we call it mala. So the glory garland, the garland that is worn when someone is glorious, someone is victorious. This glory garland round my soul, could I descry such? How can I give that up? Because right now I'm so happy. It seems as if I have won everything. There's a glory garland on me because I have won one last ride with my mistress, with my ex-mistress. Try and test. I sink back, shuddering from the quest. Earth being so good, would heaven seem best? Ultimately, everything leads to death. So even we are moving towards death, and we know that it's best to die happily. And he has done enough so that he can die happily now. He has got his one last ride, and he's pretty much happy. He can die in peace. But he asks one last question. Earth being so good, because he's enjoying this present moment so much, says, Earth being so good, would heaven seem best? Is heaven better than this? Can heaven be better than this? If so, then maybe I'll go. If not, maybe I'll just stay. Or maybe, what if this ride never ends? Is a question that looms on him, and we'll see how that goes. Reminds me of a song, a Bengali song, which says that এই পথ যদি না শেষ হয়, if this road doesn't end, কেমন হতো? How would it be? Tell me. So it's a very famous Bengali song. So any Bengali person you meet, you can just tell them about this song, that what if this road doesn't end? How would it be? You tell me. So this is the English translation of the song, and they would know about it because it's so famous. So it says here that now heaven and she are beyond this ride. Now see, this ride is all for me right now, because heaven is beyond it, obviously. I'm on earth right now. She's also beyond, because I know that after this ride I won't get her, but this ride is my present moment. So what do? I just ride. So you see, remember that we had this idea about how riding is used with a sexual connotation as well. So we cannot ignore that, because in every stanza, every time the idea of riding comes in, the sexual innuendo is extremely explicit. So we have to keep that in mind as well, that maybe this is not just some horse ride. So moving on to the final stanza of the poem. And yet she has not spoke so long. Now see, this is brilliant. This is genius. This is genius on Browning's part, because Browning is writing what? He is writing a dramatic monologue. And in writing a dramatic monologue, you cannot have more than one speaker. And in the last stanza, the speaker of the poem states this, that she has not spoke so long. So all through whatever we have been listening to are the thoughts of the speaker. Maybe she moved in some way, maybe she did some actions, and we get to know that actions, we get to know those actions from the speaker of the poem himself. So he says that, and yet she has not spoke so long. What if heaven be that fair and strong at life's best, with our eyes upturned, with the life's flowers first discerned, we, fixed so, ever should so abide. His mistress is so fair. His mistress, the love of his mistress, his love for his mistress is also so strong that he tries to compare his mistress with heaven now. Says, what if heaven be that fair and strong at life's best, with our eyes upturned? At life's best, with our eyes upturned. So you see, again, the sexual innuendo cannot be avoided here. But eyes upturned could also mean looking up towards death, looking up towards a prospective happy death. It could also mean looking up in joy, simply. So with eyes upturned, whither life's flower is first discerned. So life's flower, again, flower has a sexual innuendo. It has got to do with the virginity of a girl, but the life's flower is first discerned could also means that the idea that life is beautiful has first been seen by them. Right now in this ride, they are feeling that their life is so beautiful, because life has been a bunch of thorns under them, and suddenly they can see a flower. He can see a flower, and he is so happy, and it is discerned for the first time. So we, fixed so, we in the sense him and his lover, they are fixed in that one place, ever should so abide. Again, another rhetorical question. Should we abide by the social norms, the social rules? So again, we go back to the sexual innuendo part. So maybe they have finally come to the last stages of their physical intimacy, and now he asks this final question, that would it be like, do we need to follow the social norms, do we need to abide? On the other hand, if we look at it very easily, then we would say that I could simply run away with her. She's on a horse with me. She might get married to someone later, but right now she's with me. If I wanted, I could simply abduct her. I could take her away. And, well, my life would be done. It would be nice. But there are some social issues, there are some social barriers to this particular action. Should we abide by those social barriers? That's the question in his mind. Yet, and since she is not speaking anything, this should be kept in mind. Since she is not speaking anything, how do we take the silence of the female lover? How do we take the silence of the mistress? Is it a yes, or is it an acquiescing yes, or is it a no which cannot be said, or a reluctant no? What is it? Is it a yes or a no? We do not know, because the lady just does not speak, and we are open to understand the silence in any way we want to. And he asks, what if we still ride on, we two, with life forever old yet new? What if we still ride on? How would it be if we could just ride on? So the idea that he might abduct her and keep riding on this is on, number one. Number two, that this ride, in this moment, everything is good. What if this ride keeps going on? Just like I mentioned in the last paragraph, that what if this ride never stopped? So being there in that moment for all eternity, that is a sublime feeling, isn't it? So the kind of sublimity that sculptor, musicians, poets, they have not been able to reach, says that what if we still ride on, we two, with life forever old yet new? So the life is old. We have been in this life for a long time, but because we are going to be together now, this life will be new. Changed not in kind but in degree. So the kind of life that we had will not be changed, but the degree would be. So we would love each other because we have always loved each other, but then we would love each other even more. We would want to think about each other, but now even more. So everything is going to change in degree. The instant made eternity. Just like we said, one small moment, this instant would become an eternity, a sublime feeling. That is an eternally sublime feeling. See, and heaven just proved that I and she ride, and heaven just prove. And would it be possible? So this is still a question. And since all the other questions are so rhetorical, you are made to think, is this question, the last question, also rhetorical? That will heaven just prove that I and she ride together forever, ride? Yeah? Will we keep riding forever like this? Can heaven just prove that this can happen? So the poem ends in a question, and the reader is left trying to think of how to answer this question, because there is no correct answer to this. The ride may end right at that moment, or it may go on forever. And the beauty is in that moment itself, when you do not really know what's going to happen next. There is a movie called Inception, directed by Christopher Nolan, starring Leonardo DiCaprio in it. And the end of the story, I do not know if you have seen it, you would know. If you have not seen it, it's still beautiful. It's no spoilers. There's this totem, a little, spinning top. And the idea is that if it spins, then you are in a dream. If it keeps spinning, then you are in a dream. And if it stops and falls, then you are in reality. And in the end, the top is spun on the floor, and the moment it starts to wobble a little bit, the movie ends. It's all black. So you keep thinking that, was it a dream or was it reality? What was it? So this dilemma, this works here as well, where the question rises that, is the ride going to end right now, or will this ride go on? So that's it, people. This was The Last Ride Together, a beautiful poem. It's a longish poem, but it's a beautiful poem. And I hope that I've been able to explain it to you. If you have any doubts, I encourage you to post your questions in the comment section, because this is a YouTube video after all. And I'll be happy to answer all your questions. And this goes not for this video, but for all the other videos that we have had ahead. So take care and have a great time till we meet again.